per the rules of the competition. And I have confirmation that the live stream is now active. Thank you. All right. Certain rules that we usually look at that apply when we're doing this in person, so I'll skip over those. Remember, there's no recesses unless there's going to be a health emergency. Hopefully we don't have any of those. And it looks like the judges have confirmed that there's no conflicts with the team members. The team members have also confirmed that there's no conflicts with the judges. Is that correct? I see nods of heads uniformly. All right. If we're ready, we'll go ahead and swear in the team's scoring panelists and the observers. So could the team members, the attorneys, please raise your hands. Thank you. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Excellent. I see and hear affirmations. Witnesses, will you please raise your hands? Excellent. Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I do.
Excellent. I see and hear affirmations. Gallery members, those of you watching, I can't see you, but I'm going to ask you to raise your right hands and trust that you will do so. So gallery members, including teacher and attorney coaches, family members and friends, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical and professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial round? I'm going to assume that you're all answering yes in one way or another. Scoring panelists, will you please raise your right hands? Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anything that excuse me. All right. If we could have the team members starting with Team Andy, please introduce yourselves. If we could have Team Michael off camera for the time being. And scoring panelists, you can go ahead and go off camera as well.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Juliet Jensen, and I will be a plaintiff attorney directing Dakota Weirs, crossing Skylar Weirs, and giving plaintiff closing.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Danielle Jensen. I will be a plaintiff attorney for Team Andy. I will be directing Carson Durst and crossing Blake Doncourt and giving the opening statement.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Sophie Harrison. I am a plaintiff attorney for Team Andy. I will be directing Dr. Casey Rogers and crossing Dr. Devin Lawrence.
Excellent. And Team Andy witnesses.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Andrew Yoakum, and I will be playing Dakota Weirs for Team Andy.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Tolly Savitt, and I'm playing Carson Durst.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Lola Cheney, and I will be portraying the role of Dr. Casey Rogers.
Thank you very much. If we could now have Team Michael come up on screen.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. My name is Asia Hallbeck, and I'll be doing the cross-examination of Dakota Weirs and the direct examination of Blake Doncourt. My witness would now like to introduce himself.
Your Honor, my name is Christopher Cooper, And I am Blake Doncourt.
Thank you.
Co-counsel would now like to introduce themselves.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, I will be giving the opening statement for the defense, the cross-examination of Carson Durst, and the direct examination for Skylar Weirs. My witness will now like to introduce themselves.
Your Honor, my name is Josie Hansen and I am Skylar Weirs.
My co-counsel will now like to introduce themselves.
Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury, my name is Sydney Pavetti, and I will be providing the closing argument for the defense, as well as conducting the cross-examination of Dr. Casey Rogers and the direct examination of Dr. Devin Williams. My witness would now like to introduce herself.
Your Honor, my name is Sierra Bourne, and I am Dr. Devin Williams.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Do we have pretrial matters? If we could have the attorneys who are handling those come up on screen. Excellent. For plaintiff, Team Andy, Ms. Jensen, do we have any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, a few. I would ask that the judge and jury be aware of the stipulated facts, which are that all signatures in the paperwork are valid and that the chain of custody is not in dispute.
All right. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Those facts shall be stipulated.
Thank you. And the plaintiff would also like to make sure that you, the jury, the witnesses, and opposing counsel will be allowed to look at their unaltered exhibit notebooks when entering exhibits into evidence in order to speed up the flow of the trial and to avoid the technical difficulties that may come along with screen sharing exhibits.
That's fine.
Thank you. And finally, we would ask that any remaining time in the plaintiff's closing can be reserved for rebuttal.
I will leave it up to the plaintiff to reserve and to monitor the clock for their own time. And if they have time left over, they can certainly use that for rebuttal.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all.
All right. For Team Michael, any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, just one. We would actually like to use screen sharing in order to enter exhibits, so that way we can have identification purposes, so that way the jury can understand what documents we're exactly referring to. And once they're so entered, then they can actually use them as evidence in the trial.
All right. I think under the circumstances, using screen share for admission of evidence is appropriate, and the jurors will ignore any evidence that is not admitted during that process.
No further preliminary matters, Your Honor.
All right. For the opening statements, could we have the attorneys who are giving the opening statements come up on screen, both of them, please? All right. Would the attorneys doing opening statements like to have the jurors, the scoring panelists, on screen during your opening statement?
I think that for internet purposes, it might be easier for our team if they were not up on screen, Your Honor.
That's fine. That's fine. Ms. Robertson, do you have a preference? I missed what you said there. It looked like there was a bit of a hiccup on the bandwidth. So maybe that answers the question.
Sorry, Your Honor. I do not have a preference.
Okay. In order to save bandwidth issues, let's keep the scoring panelists off screen for opening statements. All right. Any other pretrial matters?
No, Your Honor.
None. All right. In that case, Ms. Jensen, you'll be giving the opening statement for the plaintiff?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are here today because Lush Fertilizer was deceitful, greedy, and negligent. Because Lush Fertilizer was deceitful, our client, Dakota Weir's life has been completely, irreversibly altered for the worse. Truffaut, a bonding agent created by Lush Fertilizer, has torn Dakota Weir's dream from him. Lush was negligent, so Dakota Weir will never have his dream realized of playing piano at Juilliard. We are here today because Dakota Weir cannot have his life back. And because Lush was negligent, the same fate could fall upon others. Ladies and gentlemen, the definition of negligence is failure to exercise reasonable care resulting in the damage or injury of another. We will prove that Lush Fertilizer manufactured a product containing Truffaut. We will prove that the defendant was negligent by failing to prevent unreasonable damage to those who would reasonably use their product. We will prove that Dakota Weirs is someone who would reasonably be expected to use their product. And we will prove that the harm that came to Dakota Weirs resulted from the negligence of Lush Fertilizer. Today, you will hear the testimony of Dakota Weirs, a young man whose entire future was planned around his passion, piano, and how it was torn away from him. You will hear that in a job where he would reasonably be expected to use such a product, the defendant claims Mr. Weirs to be negligent when he was only doing his job. You will hear how Dakota Weirs developed a serious disease that we will prove could only have been caused by his use of Lush Fertilizer. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is an environmentally developed disease. Dakota Weirs and his twin lived an almost identical life. The only difference was Lush Fertilizer. And yet, Dakota Weirs' twin did not develop non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Because Lush was negligent, Dakota Weirs got cancer. Today, you will hear Carson Durst, a former employee of Lush Fertilizer, testify that the company knew the risks of Truffaut. Not only were they aware, but extensive studies were done on the matter, and a link specifically to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was found. We will show that precautions that could have spared Dakota Weirs his suffering were not taken because Lush was negligent and greedy. You will hear Dr. Casey Rogers, a scientist with extensive background in horticulture, who studies the harmful effects of drugs on humans, state that Truffaut is not safe. Dr. Rogers will explain that those exposed to Truffaut are 10 times more likely than others to develop cancer, and specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, like Dakota Weirs was. But Lush was too greedy and too negligent to prevent this with a clear, direct, and straightforward warning. You will hear how Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, knew that in using Truffaut, they were putting their users at risk. The defendant will try to tell you that the risk is not supported by valid science. They will try to tell you that they know that Truffaut does not cause cancer, but we will show that Truffaut does cause cancer and that the science says so. Lush was too greedy to bake the fertilizer and prevent this. Blake Doncourt would not bake the fertilizer because it cost too much money and Lush was too greedy. The defense will call Skylar Weirs, Dakota Weirs' own twin, who has taken a stand against him because of familial prejudice. They will try to tell you that Skylar Weirs, with a gambling problem and a job writing about flat earthers and aliens, knows that Truffaut does not cause cancer. We will prove that Lush Fertilizer was negligent and that Truffaut was the cause of Mr. Weirs' cancer. You will hear that Skylar Weirs' bad relationship with their brother has biased them, and how Lush was negligent. Finally, the defendant will call Devin Williams, whose sole job was to prevent harm from coming to Lush's users, and how they utterly failed. They will claim that Lush Fertilizer is better for the earth, but we will show that in studies, Truffaut was not found to be any better. Lush chose profit because they were greedy. Ladies and gentlemen, today you will hear how Lush was deceitful, how Lush was greedy, how Lush was negligent. If Lush cared, Dakota Weirs would not be sick. He would not have lost all but his life. He would be performing at Juilliard, living his dream. Because Lush was deceitful, because Lush doesn't care, we are here today. He is here today. Ladies and gentlemen, Dakota Weirs deserves compensation for the pain that Lush has caused him, pain that he will have to live with for the rest of his life because Lush was deceitful, greedy, and negligent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. All right, Mr. Robertson, I believe.
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, today we are here because the plaintiff developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. We feel for the plaintiff and understand her need to blame someone, but we will show you that her assumption that Lush Products is responsible for her sickness is just not factual. Where are the facts? Facts, not assumptions. Lush Fertilizer has created environmentally sound lawn products and gone out of its way to test those products to make sure they are safe. They are an environmental company and donate to charities. Their products are known worldwide and meet all legal safety standards. Through our witnesses, you'll see that these are the facts. Today, you will hear from Lush Fertilizer's CEO, Blake Doncourt, the extent to which he and his company go to keep their products safe. He will note their suggested precautions, PPE, personal protective equipment, the users of his product need to wear to ensure their own safety. You will hear Doncourt explain why baking the fertilizer was not necessary to meet safety standards. Blake will also bring up that he as a CEO has not seen a study that concluded a negative impact Lush products has had on humans or the environment. You will hear from Skylar Weirs, an expert defense witness and sibling of the plaintiff, that in her own research, she found other pesticides to be known carcinogens, and how Lush avoids these pesticides by using the product Drufo. She will give you facts about what Drufo does and the positive effects Drufo can have on the environment. You will hear Dr. Devin Williams, an expert defense witness, explain the fact that Drufo is banned in other countries because of the nitrate levels, not because of a causal link with cancer. She will give her own explanation and research about the Dr. Casey Rogers study. She will outline the differences between an average person using the product and a farm labor using the product. We will show you the assumptions made in the plaintiff's case today. First, through the plaintiff, we will show you how she has assumed Lush products gave her cancer merely because her twin does not have cancer. We will prove that Drufo in Lush products is not the carcinogen she claims it is. Carson Durst, a plaintiff witness and former employee of Lush, makes assumptions about links between studies and rats. She will make assumptions that Lush doctored its studies to make Drufo look good. She admits she lacks the data and connections with the research team to have solid facts. So she assumes there's a causal link between Drufo and cancer. The facts of this case will not substantiate her claims. The burden of proofs in today's case is solely on the plaintiff. They must prove a preponderance of evidence that, one, defendant manufactured a fertilizer product containing the chemical compound known as Drufo. The defendant was negligent by failing to exercise with reasonable care to prevent the product from being an unreasonable risk to harm the person who might be reasonably expected to use the product in a manner the defendant might have reasonably expected. 3, plaintiff was one of those persons the defendant should have reasonably expected to use the product. And 4, the plaintiff had damages that were caused by the defendant's negligence while the product was being used in the manner the defendant might have reasonably expected. If you find any one or more of these 4 statements not been proved, then your verdict must lie for the defendant. In other words, where are the facts? We ask you to listen carefully to the plaintiff's case and separate the assumptions from the facts. We believe the facts of this case will lead you to find Lush Products is not responsible for the plaintiff's cancer or financial damages. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. All right, is this plaintiff ready to call our first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Dakota Weirs. Stand.
All right, and it looks like we have counsel for the defense and the witness. All right, so Dakota Weirs, you've previously been sworn in. Are you ready to testify? All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
My name is Dakota Weirs. The last is spelled W-E-I-R-S.
Mr. Weirs, why are you here today?
Because I believe a ingredient in Lush fertilizer, Drufo, caused my cancer, and I want them held accountable.
Mr. Weirs, how has this cancer affected your life?
I was very active in my community, very active in my school. I volunteered at soup kitchens. I had a job at Haven Landscaping every summer for 4 years. And of course, there was my chief passion, which is playing the piano, and I can do none of that anymore.
Why can't you do any of that anymore?
Now I am always in pain. And I'm always tired. I can't even sit at the piano bench for any duration of time without getting bruises. And And I'm even in pain sitting here in front of you today.
Thank you, Mr. Weirs. Before you developed your disease, what were your plans for school?
Well, because of my piano playing ability, I was given a full ride scholarship to Juilliard in New York. I was so excited to go, but then this disease destroyed that chance for me.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Weirs. Does anyone else in your family have cancer?
No, not even my twin brother, Skylar Weirs.
Did your twin work in landscaping with you?
We did basically everything together over the years, but my landscaping job, we did not share.
Thank you. Mr. Weirs, why do you believe Lush fertilizer caused your cancer?
Well, one day I was sitting on the couch, which is a unfortunate common occurrence now because can't really do a lot. When I was watching TV and I saw a news story that said ingredients in Lush fertilizer, Drufo, was linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which coincidentally is the cancer I have.
I'm sorry, there was an objection? What was
Yes,
the objection?
Hearsay.
The response?
Your Honor, I am not offering this story to assert the truth of the matter. I'm merely asking this question so that Mr. Weirs can explain how he had begun to believe that Lush fertilizer caused his cancer.
All right, based on that response, I'll overrule the objection. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Mr. Weirs, why do you believe that Lush fertilizer caused your cancer?
Okay, as I was saying, I was sitting on the couch, which is a common occurrence nowadays, when I saw the news story that said Lush, ingredients in Lush fertilizer, Drufo, was linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which coincidentally is the cancer I have.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would now like to direct the court and opposing counsel to what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 1. Mr. Weirs, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Can you describe to the jury what it is?
This is the ingredients label on the Lush fertilizer I used at Haven Landscaping.
And have you seen this before?
Yes, I have.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of the label?
I believe so.
Thank you. Your Honor, I move for the admission of what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 1 into evidence.
Ms. Hollaback, any objection?
No objections at this time, Your Honor.
Then Exhibit 1 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Weirs, does the label of Lush fertilizer show that there is Drufo in Lush fertilizer?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Are there any recommendations on the packaging of Lush fertilizer?
There are the user safety recommendations.
What are some of those recommendations?
Objection cumulative.
Objection or a response?
Your Honor, I'm just asking Mr. Weirs to describe the packaging of Lush fertilizer to me so that I can lay foundation for my coming questions.
That's fine. The exhibit's been admitted. He could read off of it.
Thank you.
Ms. Hollaback?
Your Honor, if I may, as opposing counsel has pointed out, the jury has Exhibit 1 pulled up and they're fairly capable of reading the safety recommendations. It does not need to be read on the stand by Mr. Weirs.
I don't necessarily disagree that it does not need to be, but that doesn't mean that it can't be.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I continue?
May.
Thank you. Mr. Weirs, what are some of those recommendations?
It says to utilize protective clothing that covers skin, and to use a respirator or N95 face mask.
Thank you. Mr. Weirs, one final question. Is there a warning on Lush Fertilizer's packaging about Drufo causing cancer?
No, there is not, other than the keep out of reach of children and keep it out of your eyes. There is no other hazards.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Mr. Weirs. I understand this will be difficult for you, so I will try and get through this as quickly as possible. You worked for a landscaping company named Haven Landscaping, yes?
Correct.
And you used several different fertilizers and lawn chemicals, correct?
Yes, I was responsible for spreading the fertilizer and the seeds for that company.
If you would, could you please refer to Exhibit 1? And Your Honor, if my co-counsel could share Exhibit 1 using Zoom screen sharing?
Of course. And there's no need to ask in the future. Everyone can use that to screen share exhibits.
Mr. Weirs, Exhibit 1 fairly depicts what the label of a Lush fertilizer product looked like while you were working with it, correct?
That is correct.
And the different fertilizers you used had similar chemicals to the ones depicted on this label, did they not?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
Your Honor, I'm merely clarifying if Mr. Weirs has used similar chemicals to the ones depicted on the screen.
I understand the question. What's the, there's a objection to what's relevant about that.
I am laying foundation for a future question.
Okay, I'll allow it. Do you need the question read back to you, Mr. Weirs?
Yes, please.
Counsel?
Of course. The different fertilizers you used had similar chemicals to the ones depicted on this label, did they not?
I didn't really read the ingredients all that much. I just spread it.
Okay. So you're saying you could have gotten your condition from a different fertilizer that had these similar chemicals?
I am not a doctor. I don't know.
Let's talk more about what else is on this exhibit. Are you aware of the safety recommendation label that is on this package?
Yes, I read it.
Are you also aware of the section labeled hazards?
Yes, I've also looked at that.
And under the hazard section label, are you aware it says to keep out of reach of children?
Yes.
And in your statement, you said that you were 14 years old when you started working at Haven, correct?
Yes, I was a minor, not a child.
So just to clarify, that is below the legal majority age. You were a minor, correct?
Yes, that's when I started. And in the next 4 summers, I also did the exact same job.
So just to clarify, legally speaking, you were a child when you were using this product?
I was a minor. Would you call a 17-year-old a child? Because they are technically a minor as well.
I don't believe that was my question. So legally speaking, you were a child when you were using this product because you were a minor, correct?
I was a minor. I don't know about child.
Yeah. And just to clarify, the entire time you use this product, you are legally speaking a child?
Yes.
Objection asked and answered.
He already answered it, and I think the point's been made. We'll go ahead and move on.
Let's talk a little bit more about what was on the safety recommendation label. At the time, you're aware that it says to wear protective clothing that covers exposed skin while using the product, yes?
Yes.
And you didn't wear protective clothing that covers exposed skin while using the product, right?
I did not.
But to clarify, you were supposed to wear long sleeves, pants, and gloves when you were using fertilizer?
Yes, I was, and now I regret that.
But to clarify, you did not do this, correct?
I did not do it.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the other fertilizers and chemicals you used.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. This case is about whether Lush fertilizer caused Mr. Weir's cancer, not other fertilizers.
I think this is a fair line of questioning, given the circumstances. I'll allow it.
These other fertilizers had warnings, correct?
Yes.
And some of these warnings directed you to wear a mask or eye covering, right?
Yes.
But often you did not do this.
That is correct.
You were also told to wear face coverings when working with other chemicals, correct?
Yes, I was told to do that.
And you still did not wear a face covering.
I did not.
Let's talk a little bit more about your coworkers. Your coworkers didn't follow these safety recommendations, right?
No, they did not.
Your coworkers didn't follow they wore shorts and short sleeves too, correct?
Yes.
And was one of these reasons you and your coworkers did not do this was because it was hot outside?
Yeah. Yes. It was summer, so yeah.
So just to clarify, if everybody wore shorts and short sleeve shirts, why is it that you're the only one to be reported with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
I don't know. Again, I am not a doctor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Hollaback. Ms. Jensen, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Mr. Weirs, when you were using Lush fertilizer, did you know the large risk you were at?
I'm sorry, I did not hear you. Could you please repeat?
Yes. Mr. Weirs, when you were using Lush fertilizer, were you aware of the danger that it could cause you?
No, it did not say anything here about cancer whatsoever.
If you had known of the dangers, would you have acted differently?
Yes, I would have. I would have worn all of the clothing recommended.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right, thank you. Plaintiff have next witness.
Your Honor, the plaintiff would like to call Carson Durst to the stand.
All right. We
Thank
have
you.
counsel and we have the witness. Carson Durst, are you ready to testify?
Yes, I am.
All right, Mr. Robertson, you ready? All right. Ms. Jensen, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Carson Durst, D-U-R-S-T.
What do you do for a living, Mr. Durst?
I'm currently the head of research and development at Terrace Greenery.
When did you start working in this industry?
I started in the fertilizer industry in about 2003.
And how long have you been doing this?
That would give it about 20 years experience.
Who were you working for when you started?
I started at Lush Fertilizer.
Thank you. And what position do you hold now?
Now I'm the head of research and development at Terrace Greenery.
Do you have any certifications?
Yes, I do. I hold a bachelor's in chemical engineering from Arizona State University.
And what other experience do you have?
Other than that, I have my almost 20 years of experience in the fertilizer developing industry.
Thank you. Mr. Durst, how did you get your job at Lush Fertilizer?
I got my job through close family relationships with Blake Doncourt, the CEO of Lush.
And how did you know Mr. Doncourt?
Me and his son and I played soccer on the local field soccer team together.
Thank you. When again did you start with Lush?
July 2003, right after college.
Can you describe for the jury what your early experience at Lush was like?
It went very well. I worked hard and earned a full-time position in months.
And what did you do in your full-time position?
I was a product development engineer on the research and development team, and I helped develop Drufo.
What is Drufo, Mr. Durst?
Drufo is a chemical bonding agent which helps essentially preserve Lush Fertilizers products to give it more longevity so you don't have to apply it as often.
What did the Drufo development process involve?
Our team was tasked with testing the safety of Drufo, so we looked for studies conducted on Drufo and logged the results in our lab notebooks.
What was found in these studies?
I found a study conducted in Britain that indicated that a component in Drufo named nitrogen phosphorus carbonate was carcinogenic in rats.
Thank you. Mr. Durst, was a second study conducted by Lush Fertilizer at the conclusion of the first?
Yes, after the first study was concluded, concerns arose that Drufo could be carcinogenic in humans, so Lush opened a new study to analyze this finding.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would like to draw the court's attention to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 4 for identification purposes. I would ask the court to direct opposing counsel's attention to the same exhibit. Thank you. Have you seen this before?
Yes, I have.
Could you explain to the jury what it is?
It is an email from our superiors at Lush Fertilizer indicating the procedures we should take on the second study of Drufo.
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the email you received?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Robertson?
Yes, Your Honor, I believe this document is hearsay. Also, I'd like proper or more laying foundation.
All right, first let's respond to the hearsay objection.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay because Gary Langley, as a manager at Lush Fertilizer, is an agent of the party opponent, and that makes this admissible.
All right. Mr. Robertson, any response to that?
Yes, Gary Langley is not here to testify today, and also Lush Fertilizer is the party opponent. Gary Langley is not.
Do you deny that Gary Langley was a representative of Lush at the time he prepared the email?
I do not, but like I said before, he is not here today to testify.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the hearsay objection. What was the objection on foundation?
I'd like opposing counsel to lay more foundation.
Okay. Counsel, can you do so?
I believe I could, but I think I've laid sufficient foundation to show that Mr. Durst, because he worked for Lush and because Gary was his manager, would know about this and that it's relevant to the case.
I tend to agree with you, Ms. Jensen, so I will admit the exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Durst, what was the conclusion of this second study?
At our final meeting for the second study, our team had found that not only Drufo could be linked to cancer, but specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So regardless of this, management told us to keep it under wraps until further analysis was performed.
So just to reiterate, Mr. Durst, was non-Hodgkin's lymphoma ever specifically discussed?
Yes, at that meeting.
Were there any recommendations made that would eliminate the risk of Drufos causing cancer?
Yes, there was. It was recommended that Lush Fertilizer bake Drufo-containing products to reduce or eliminate any possibility of carcinogenics.
Was the fertilizer baked?
No, it's not.
Did Lush Fertilizer know the dangers of Drufo?
Yes, I told them.
Thank you. How did your work life change after these studies were concluded?
A few months after the studies finished, my manager, Gary Langley, started giving me poor performance reports, and I got put on work probation. Although my work was as good, if not better, it's almost as if he had something against me.
How did your association with Lush end?
After these reports just kept coming, I decided to go speak to Blake Doncourt about it, and he practically told me to deal with it myself and that was out of his business. So after this, I knew they were just going to keep coming. So I decided to look for a job somewhere else and found an opening in Terrace Greenery.
Thank you. How did Mr. Doncourt react to this?
Mr. Doncourt reacted by filing a lawsuit against me, claiming I broke a non-compete agreement.
What was the result of this legal battle?
The court settled in my favor, stating that I could go work for Terrace after 6 months instead of 2 years.
And how is work at Terrace Greenery?
It's gone very well. I've gotten a promotion over the years because of my hard work, and
Objection
I'm now
relevant.
the head of my department.
Your Honor, you are muted.
Yes, I was. Thank you, Mr. Robertson. We had a relevance objection. Ms. Jensen, do you have a response?
Your Honor, I believe this is relevant to this case to show to help establish a lack of bias and the witness's credibility.
Okay. Anticipating that there will be cross-examination on that issue, I'll allow it.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Durst, do you need me to re-ask the question?
Sure.
All right. How's work at Terrace Greenery?
It has gone very well. I've worked hard, and over the years, I've gotten a promotion, and I am now currently the head of my department.
And finally, Mr. Durst, did Lush Fertilizer know the dangers of Drufo?
Yes, I told them myself.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Cross-examination, Mr. Robertson.
Yes, Your Honor. Let's talk about Terrace Greenery. You joined Terra at least in part to hurt Mr. Doncourt.
Yes, at the time, it was heat of the moment, but now I am eternally grateful for Blake because now that I look at it, he kickstarted my career, and I wouldn't be at my position today if it weren't for him.
And Terra is actually Lush's biggest competitor.
Yes, I believe so.
It's also true Mr. Doncourt and Lush demanded you not work for 6 months as a violation of your non-compete agreement.
Yes.
And since you started working at Terra's, you've been developing a new fertilizer.
Yes.
And it's a fertilizer that goes directly against Lush's fertilizer.
Yes. Yes.
Objection, improper character evidence.
Response.
Your Honor, a moment to confer with co-counsel.
Sure. Mr. Robertson, do you have a response to the objection?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm establishing potential bias for this question.
All right, I'll allow it. Objection overruled.
Let's talk about your knowledge. Would you agree with me that Drufo is a product exclusive to Lush Fertilizer?
Yes, I believe they have a patent.
And your knowledge on in-house studies on Drufo were ended when you were let go?
Yes.
So you cannot testify about anything Lush Fertilizer has done internally since December 2006?
Yes.
So over 15 years.
Yes.
Would you agree with me that is a long period of time?
Yeah. Yes.
And so you don't know, I'm sorry, the study in England, in your own research, you found no studies about the effects Drufo may have on humans.
No, I did not.
The study in England concluded there were effects on rats,
Yes.
but not humans.
No, because you can't test it on humans.
The study in England was about rats, not humans, correct?
Objection, asked and answered.
Slightly different question all out.
I'll re-ask the question. The study in England was about rats, not humans, correct?
Yes.
Let's talk about your job performance. You previously stated that you were being wrongfully targeted by others at Lush.
Yes.
And you said that you were accused of skating along the company.
Yes.
And you stated that you were accused of not pulling your weight.
Yes.
And you said the quality of your work was being criticized.
Yes.
And you stated this was unfair.
Yes.
Now you earned your position by your own merit.
Yes.
That the position had nothing to do with your being a family friend of the Doncourts.
No, it did not.
So there is not a family connection?
Well, there was. I got the job through them, but from there, it was my work that got me the promotions.
And this presumably caused resentment.
Yes, I guess so.
It is fair to say that you expected Blake Doncourt to have your back.
Yes, because I felt unfairly treated.
Because in 2004 or early 2005, you went to Mr. Doncourt about feeling marginalized.
Yes.
And he told you were lucky to have your job.
Yes.
And later in 2005, you went to Mr. Doncourt's office to ask him to run interference on your behalf with Gary Langley.
Yes.
He told you to grow up and do your job.
Yes.
You felt betrayed because Mr. Doncourt did not have your back.
Yes.
And this upset you.
Yes.
To be clear with the jury, you were on a performance improvement plan.
Yes, I was.
And this was in numerous responses about your job performance.
Yes.
And it was because you were in the process of being fired.
Yes.
Isn't it true? It is just because you were bad at your job.
No.
No further questions, Your Honor. You are muted, Your Honor.
Keeps happening. Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Ms. Jensen, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
All right. In that case, does the plaintiff have another witness to call?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff would like to call Dr. Casey Rogers to the stand.
All right. Dr. Rogers, you're prepared to testify?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Pavetti, you're ready? Excellent. Ms. Harrison, you may proceed.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last for the record.
Casey Rogers, Rogers.
Can you explain to the jury what you do for a living?
Yes, I'm a professor in the Horticulture and Entomology Department at UC Berkeley.
Professor, what are your academic credentials?
I have a PhD in Agriculture and Entomology from UC Berkeley and a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and Chemistry from CSU.
Do you have any other relevant previous experience?
Yes, I was a research analyst for a large multinational chemical company.
Thank you. I would now like to draw the court's attention to what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 6. Have you
Okay.
seen this before, Professor?
Yes, I have.
Could you describe it for the jury, please?
Yes, it is my CV, which entails my relevant employment and education experience.
What does this experience include?
I have studied pesticide chemistry and toxicology, along with many other things.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Pavetti?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted then.
Thank you. And I would now like to draw the court's attention to what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 7.
Okay.
Have you seen this, Professor?
Yes, I have.
Can you explain what it is to the jury?
Yes, this is a list of my peer-reviewed research publications.
What did the research for these publications involve?
I primarily studied the harmful effects on Drufo of various chemicals, specifically Drufo.
How long have you been studying Drufo?
Since 2013.
And what studies exactly have you conducted?
I conducted a study on its weed resistance in both 2013 and 2019, as well as a study on how to avoid its harmful effects, as well as its carcinogenicity.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of what has previously been marked for identification purposes as Exhibit 7 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Pavetti?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
How have you used your aforementioned research, Dr. Rogers?
I have been consulted by many advisory boards and regulatory agencies on how to avoid these harmful effects.
Your Honor, I now move to have this witness recognized as an expert in pesticide toxicology, specifically involving Drufo and its harmful effects and carcinogenicity.
Ms. Pavetti, any objection? Would you like to do any voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief voir dire.
Of course.
So you have no medical degrees
I do not.
and you have no medical training.
No.
You have taught numerous courses, correct?
Yes, I have. I am a professor.
But none of those courses have anything to do with pesticides.
No, they do not.
They also have nothing to do with toxicology involving humans.
They do not. No.
You have numerous research interests,
Yes.
and toxicology is one of your research interests.
Yes, it is a very interesting topic.
However, a research interest is not the same as having a degree, correct?
It is not, but you do research a lot when you do have an interest in other research.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Your Honor, we have no problem with this witness being entered in the field of pesticide toxicology. However, we ask that she make no sort of testimony regarding medical issues, also no testimony regarding toxicology involving humans.
Okay, Ms. Harrison, are you satisfied with that limitation?
May I respond to that objection?
Sure.
So while Dr. Rogers does not have a medical degree, Dr. Rogers has extensively studied the harmful effects of Drufo and other pesticides. So while degrees are a great signal of expertise, so is 10 years of research. Dr. Rogers is extremely well versed in this, and I believe she has proper experience in this field to make judgments on harmful effects, as she has 4 studies on it.
Your Honor, if I may.
Briefly.
I believe that opposing counsel is entering her in pesticide toxicology, which means toxicology involving plants and other non-human organisms. So that is why I'm making this request.
Okay, I understand. Ms. Harrison, can you clarify again the specific field in which you are seeking to admit Dr. Rogers as an expert?
Yes, pesticide toxicology, as in the toxic effects of products used to kill pests on plants. So Drufo would fall under that, and
Okay.
its harmful effects would be a result of that.
All right. Harmful effects is somewhat broad. So I will entertain appropriate objections to a testimony that I believe is beyond Ms. Rogers' indicated area of expertise. Having said that, I will admit her as requested.
Thank you, Your Honor. Earlier, you mentioned some of your studies. Can you describe how some of them were organized?
Yes, I conducted a study with 3 groups: a control group who was not exposed to Drufo at all, a group on occasion was exposed to Drufo, and a group who on the daily was exposed to Drufo.
What did you monitor these groups for?
I monitored these groups for an increase in serious health conditions.
And what was the outcome of this study?
There was an increase in serious health conditions with the 2 groups that were exposed to Drufo.
How significant was that increase?
There was a 10 times likelihood that they would get serious illnesses if they were exposed to Drufo.
What was included in this list of serious illnesses and health conditions?
Various different cancers, including non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Thank you. Are you aware of the plaintiff, Dakota Weirs?
Yes, I am.
And have you examined his case?
Yes, I have.
Are you familiar with the extent of his exposure to Drufo?
Yes.
Was Mr. Weir's exposure to Drufo comparable to that of any of the groups in your study?
It is. It is very similar to the 2 groups that were exposed to Drufo.
And based on your previous research experience and your examination of this specific case, including Dakota Weir's exposure to Drufo, what is your expert opinion in regards to Mr. Weir's and his exposure to Drufo?
It is highly scientifically probable that Mr. Weir's exposure to Drufo caused his non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Ms. Pavetti, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Rogers, you were concerned about Drufo when it first came out on the market.
Yes, I was.
You were also concerned about many agricultural products.
Yes.
You also say it was already known that Drufo was carcinogenic in rats.
Yes.
You also say that you had been hearing reports on potentially negative effects of Drufo.
Yes, I have.
However, you have brought none of those things into court today, correct?
I have not, no.
Let's talk a little bit about your study. Your study was not a double-blind study, correct?
I am not sure what a double-blind study is. Can you clarify that?
A double-blind study is a study where there are 2 researchers in order to remove any sort of bias that may come from it. And as a scientist, you were not aware of what a double-blind study was?
I was not.
Also, in your study, you had nothing for control factors such as looking into their familial history?
I did not know.
You also did not look at any other sort of cancer-causing factors such as maybe smoking?
And no, I did not.
During your study, other substances were used, correct?
Yes.
So not just Drufo.
Yes.
So there was no really any sort of control in the type of fertilizers you were using?
There was not, no.
In your study, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma was one form of cancer that came out of your study.
Yes.
But there were others, correct?
Yes.
It would make more sense had your study had a more direct link between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma specifically, correct?
Yes.
Dr. Rogers, would you agree that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma pops up in people who have never been exposed to Drufo?
Yes, it does.
Lymphoma-based diseases could occur even if someone has lived a seemingly perfect life?
Yes, but it is not genetic.
The survival rate for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is also 72%.
Yes, it is. It is very high, but still a very...
Objection relevance.
Response?
Your Honor, this is completely relevant as it shows that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is a form of cancer, but it is able to be treated and able to be survivable.
May I respond, Your Honor?
You may.
While non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can be treated, it is still damaging, and we are looking at Dakota Weir's damages in this case, as well as whether Drufo caused Dakota Weir's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The survival rate of a cancer does not make it any less devastating or any less caused by a chemical product.
While that may be true, I think it is potentially relevant on the issue of damages regarding how much a jury is likely to award, depending on whether this is survivable or not survivable. So I will allow the question.
Dr. Rogers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma can be treated, correct?
Yes, it can.
Let's talk a little bit about recommendations that you've made. You've made my apologies. You've made recommendations on Drufo?
Yes, I have.
Those recommendations including wearing long sleeves, pants, and a mask?
Yes.
But Dakota Weirs did none of that.
He did not.
You heard him testify earlier today?
I did.
And he said that it was hot outside, it was following the other coworkers?
Yes.
In your expert opinion, would you agree with his choices of not wearing personal protective equipment?
No, I do not. I think personal protective equipment is very important, but it is not my choice to make that choice for him. That is his own choice that he needs to make for himself. If he felt comfortable not wearing personal protective equipment, then I cannot say that he should have, because it was his own choice.
Dr. Rogers, just to clarify, was that a yes or a no?
Yes, he should have worn the protective clothing.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Your Honor, you're muted.
Keep doing that, don't I? Ms. Harrison, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
Go ahead.
Did you look at anything aside from health conditions for your study?
Yes, I did. I looked at the protective clothing and how they affected the danger of the exposure.
And what were the results of this section of your study?
This section of the study was inconclusive, given that there was not insufficient time and the workers were not even given the proper protective equipment.
And what were the results of the main section of your study on Drufo's dangers?
This part of the study was very conclusive. Drufo seemed to be clearly limited, or excuse me, Drufo seemed to be linked to cancer.
Thank you. No further redirect.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison, Ms. Pavetti. Does the plaintiff have any additional witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor. Thank you. The plaintiff rests.
All right. Does the defense wish to call any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense calls Blake Doncourt to the stand.
All right.
Hello, Mr. Oh, my apologies. Go
Making
ahead.
sure everybody's ready. Ms. Jensen, you appeared ready. Mr. Doncourt. All right. Thank you, Ms. Hollebeck. You may proceed.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Doncourt. Please state your name, spelling the last for the record.
Blake Doncourt, Doncourt.
What is your occupation?
I am the CEO of Lush Fertilizer Incorporated
How long have you been with the company?
since about 2000.
What is your company known for?
Well, we're known for fertilizer that makes green grass that our customers proudly show off. After all, green grass is part of the American dream.
Does your company do anything to support the community?
We do. We have numerous charities that we support. 10% of
Objection, relevance.
Response.
Your Honor, the plaintiff's counsel has provided testimony to the jury that the company is only interested in maximizing financial gain, whereas this witness is providing limited testimony to rebut this notion and provide testimony to the positive environmental impacts and extensive charities this company has gone to make the world a better place.
Response, Ms. Jensen.
Your Honor, I don't see how what the company does for the earth changes anything about whether or not Drufo caused Mr. Weir's cancer and how it has adversely affected him.
Which is a point I'm sure you will be making throughout cross-examination and in closing. But given the plaintiff's stated intention of claiming that greed is a primary motivation, I will allow the line of questioning. Objections overruled. Ms. Hollebeck.
Mr. Johncourt, would you like me to repeat the question?
Please.
Does your company do anything to support the community?
Yes, we do. We have numerous charities. Our annual profits actually goes to our charities. One of our charities helps clean up the most polluted parts of our oceans, and one of them helps educate people on environmental issues and things like that.
Have you won any awards?
We have won some awards. Lush has won the Sustainability Business Award, and I was personally nominated for the United Nations Champions of Earth Award and hope to win it in 2020, but then COVID happened.
Let's talk more about your product, Lush Fertilizer. What is it about Lush Fertilizer that is why we are here today?
Well, we're being falsely accused of having a known carcinogen in our product, but I assure you that's just not true.
Now I'd like to talk to you about the measures you put in place to make your product safe. Were there any concerns about the safety of Drufo?
Not that I knew about. Both the EPA and our toxicology department at Lush did thorough testing into the product and found no reason for concern or any reason that we needed to take further action, that our product was safe.
And just to clarify for the jury, what does the EPA stand for?
The EPA is the Environmental Agency. It's a U.S. government organization that helps protect the environment.
Let's go back to your product. Were you required to put a warning label on your product?
We were not by any federal or state law, but as we are environmentalists, we did want our customers to be safe, as there is a small chance, a small tiny risk when using our product. So we put a safety recommendation label on our product.
Please refer to Exhibit 1. And a moment, Your Honor, while my co-counsel pulls up that exhibit.
Of course.
You mentioned a safety recommendation label. Is that the one you see on this exhibit?
Yes, it is.
And to clarify for the jury, could you please read what that safety recommendation label says?
Yes. First of all, it says to keep out of reach, as well as it says that you need to wear long sleeves, long pants, and gloves, and an N95 or respirator mask when using our product.
And what do you know about Drufo being carcinogenic?
Well, like I said, none of the scientists brought it to my attention. So if there was concern, I would definitely have put a warning label on our product immediately.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that my co-counsel is sharing on their screen a copy of what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 8.
Exhibit 8, okay.
Do you recognize this?
I do.
Can you tell the jury what this is?
Yes, this is a profit table I made back in 2004 about comparing the cost of baking our product versus not baking our product.
Is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Well, as I made it, absolutely.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 8. Its authenticity has been stipulated to and its accuracy shown.
Any objection, Ms. Jensen?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then Exhibit 8 will be admitted.
What would baking your product accomplish?
Well, the scientists say, I cannot testify to it because I'm not a scientist, but the scientists say that it will remove absolutely every carcinogen in our product. But as there really wasn't any concern, it was a business decision not to.
And the opposing counsel has tried to make the statement that you are a greedy person. What is your opinion on this?
Objection. Relevance.
I'll allow it.
Would you like me to repeat the question, Mr. Doncourt?
Please.
Opposing counsel has tried to convince the jury today that you are a greedy man. What is your opinion on this?
I think that it's just slightly offensive. I mean, like every human being, money is something that I do consider, but it's really not the driving factor of my life. I value friends and family way more.
This money that you did not spend to bake your product, what does it help you do?
Well, like I said, we do donate 10% of our annual profits to charities. So if we're not spending it on making our product, then it gets to go to our charities. Also, it goes to our stockholders and our investment funders.
You're here today because of a lawsuit. What was your reaction to being sued?
I thought that it was absolutely ridiculous that we were being accused of having a known carcinogen in our product. I assure you personally that that is not true. We are environmentalists at Lush, and we would never do anything for a human being. And in my opinion, the plaintiff's case is all assumptions.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Hallbeck. Ms. Jensen, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Doncourt, you said there was no valid evidence that directly links Drufo to cancer.
Well, yeah, because neither the EPA or our toxicology department found any reason for concern.
And today you said there was a small, tiny risk that it could.
Well, as there would be for any fertilizer. I'm not saying that it's completely safe because, well, you are outside, you are using chemicals, things like that. But I am saying that it is safe by law.
And there were studies about this risk?
On rats, if that's what you're asking about, but rats and humans are different.
Your company studied Drufo to ensure that it was safe.
Yes, we did. Very thoroughly, I might add.
Let's shift gears and discuss Carson Durst. You called Carson Durst a regrettable disappointment.
I'm so sad that Carson did this to me. I really was, we were all great friends. Like we were really, really good friends. He says in his statement that we were like second family. And I would even say that that was true. I was very happy to hire Carson Durst. I figured that he would be a good worker and things like that. But it just didn't happen. And we had him on a performance review and then end up firing him.
But you called Carson Durst a regrettable disappointment?
Well, I do believe that I just explained my answer, so I guess yes.
You were angry when Carson Durst went to work for your rival?
Well, I'd be angry if any of my...
Objection, improper characterization of the witness.
Response?
Your Honor, it is said in the witness's statement today that they were angry when Carson Durst left the company.
Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I think I'm okay. I mean, yeah, I guess I was kind of angry that Carson Durst was going to a competitor, but I would be really for any of my employees because, well, they did work for me and they all did good work.
You believed Carson Durst to be violating his non-compete agreement?
Well, yes, but that was already settled in another court case.
And if Terra Greenery would learn your trade secrets, Lush Fertilizer would be hurt financially?
Well, of
Objection,
course,
speculation.
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
This is not speculation because as the CEO of Lush Fertilizer, Mr. Doncourt would know what the effects of having trade secrets given to another company.
I tend to agree, Ms. Jensen. Objection overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Doncourt, if Terra Greenery would learn your trade secrets, Lush would be hurt financially.
well, I guess you could say that they are a competitor, and if they had a product that was like Drufo, well, some of our customers may go to them. So yes, you could say that.
You said Carson Durst was earning more than any researcher should earn.
Yes, I do believe I said that in my statement, probably because he was disclosing trade secrets, which was in compliance with his non-compete agreement.
And more than Lush could afford to pay.
Well, I guess you could say that. I did say that in my statement, but that's because we like to move our money to different places like the oceans and our charities.
Next, Mr. Doncourt, let's talk about Lush. You are the CEO of Lush Fertilizer.
I feel like that has been established.
You are responsible for your employees.
Yeah, that's kind of what the CEO does. I am in charge of the company.
You said Mr. Durst did not do his job.
Well, yeah. Why would we have fired them if they were doing their job?
Well, he was under your supervision.
Well, I do not monitor every employee individually. There's way too many employees at Lush to do that. I hire people that then report to me about that.
But you are in charge of your employees.
Well, yeah, but you have a pyramid system just like any business. You have me at the top with the board, and then we go down. We have people that report to me, and then we have people that report to those people.
Moving on. You would never intentionally harm other human beings, correct?
Absolutely not. We're environmentalists at Lush.
And you knew that baking the fertilizer would remove any risk of its causing cancer.
Well, that's what the scientists say, but as I'm not a scientist, I can't testify to that.
But you would never,
the truth.
Excuse me, but you would never even negligently harm other human beings.
Oh, absolutely not. No, we've done thorough testing into our product to make sure it was safe. And both our toxicology department and did not find any reason for concern. And as the EPA is independent, well, I trust their science.
But you didn't bake the fertilizer?
No, we did not bake our fertilizer. But
because it costs too much?
Well, no, it's just a business decision to bake our product. I mean, yes, cost is a factor, but it is really not the main factor. The main factor is it was unneeded.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Ms. Hollebeck, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you all. Does the defense wish to call their next witness? Going
The
once.
defense calls. The defense
Go ahead,
calls.
Mr. Robertson.
Yeah, the defense calls Skylar Weers to stand.
All right, Ms. Weers, you've already been sworn in.
Yes, Your
Ms.
Honor.
Jensen, are you prepared? You ready? Excellent. Mr. Robertson, you may proceed.
Please state your name and spelling the last for record.
Skylar Weers, WMEIRS.
How old are you?
20 years old. I can't believe I made it to 20. It's just
Do you have
crazy.
any siblings?
Yes, Dakota Weirs.
As in the plaintiff?
Totally, yes.
Why are you here today, Ms. Weirs?
I am here to stand by my research and what I know to be true about Drufo.
Let's talk about your experience. What do you do for a living?
I work as an investigative journalist.
Who is your employer?
Rationalist magazine.
What do they promote?
Rationalist magazine is a nonprofit organization that is devoted to promoting rhetoric and jargon, as well as resisting the spread of pseudoscience.
Have you gone to college?
No, I have not, but you do not need a degree to research, as well as if you look at the cost to go to college to do what I am doing right now, it would not be good for financial decision, at least right now, for what I want to do, which is an investigative journalist.
Have you published anything?
Yes, I have. Specifically, I have written an article questioning the narrative that there's a causal link between Drufo and cancer.
What did you research?
Well, I researched Drufo, as well as various research issued by agri-tech companies, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. My knowledge base consists of general knowledge as well as historical and statistical information.
How long did you research on that article?
Just about 1 year.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Scholar Weirs as an expert in modern agri-tech as well as in investigative journalism, as she's shown the necessary experience and knowledge under the rule of evidence 702.
Ms. Jensen, any objections, or would you like to voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to voir dire.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Weirs, you're not a scientist.
No, I'm not.
You're not a doctor.
No, I'm not. But
You
neither
don't
is
have a
Casey
PhD?
Rogers, so.
I'm
No, I
sorry.
do not. No, I'm sorry for cutting you off. That was really rude of me.
You didn't go to college?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? You kind of like cut out.
Yes, I can. You didn't go to college?
No, I did not. But again, you do not need a degree to research, as well as it's financially for what I want to do right now. It would just not be a good decision because of how much money college is.
I see. Thank you. You've never conducted any experiments on Drufo?
No, I have not.
You've never worked with Drufo yourself?
No, I have not.
So you've only ever read about Drufo?
Well, I also interviewed agri-tech companies, and then I also looked in the archives, which did have studies of those archives being the U.S. Department of Agriculture, as well as the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture.
Thank you. Your Honor, I would object to this witness being an expert in modern agri-tech. While I do agree that they most certainly could be entered as an expert in journalism, as they have explained to me very well how to research for their article, this witness does not have any more experience with Drufo than the average lay witness would, having no more knowledge of Drufo than the public files any lay person could access, no experience or skill with Drufo itself, and no training having to do with Drufo or chemical fertilizers. Reading about a product does not make an expert on that product.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Mr. Robertson, any response?
Yes, Your Honor. Not only has witness researched several different articles issued by agri-tech companies and also U.S. agencies, she has also researched those different sources for about a year. I believe that a year researching a specific topic is enough to be qualified as an expert. And as well as her knowledge and experience, I think she also has a different perspective on today's case.
Well, I'm torn. I think this is a close question. However, I will refer the parties to pretrial ruling issued in this matter, specifically with respect to the motion to preclude Ms. Weirs. And the pretrial ruling says, by offer of proof, the defendant inserts it can show that Skylar Weirs spent considerable time researching agritech companies by reviewing publications written by those companies, research studies referenced in those publications, and information maintained of the USDA and NASDA. The order continues. If such facts are confirmed at trial, they are sufficient to establish the witness has specialized knowledge beyond that held by the average juror, and the witness will be allowed to provide testimony in Rule 702 regarding agritech. I consider myself bound by the pretrial ruling, although I may be, let's just say I'm bound by the pretrial ruling, and I'll allow this witness to testify. So the objection's overruled, and the witness will be allowed to provide expert testimony regarding agritech. Mr. Robertson, you may proceed with questioning.
Before we discuss your research, let's address something. Why might your credibility be questioned?
Well, because of March Madness, when I debt that I have when I was just a child, that happened. I am in a little bit of debt currently. And because of that, and I am now established as an expert witness, I do get paid for my testimony. And so some people could think I have a financial bias, which is absolutely not true. I am here to only speak the truth. I do not want to spread pseudoscience.
What does it mean if Dakota wins this lawsuit?
Well, it means that for my dad and Dakota, financially, it would help with medical bills, which I know would take a burden off of both of them, as Dakota cannot work and my dad is supporting Dakota right now financially.
What is the relationship with your dad like?
Objection, relevance.
Response?
I'm not sure what the objection was. Opposing counsel cut out.
It was relevance.
Relevance. This witness, I'm establishing this witness does not have financial bias, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed then.
Would you like me to re-ask the question?
No. Right now, my dad's kind of mad at me because I went to college. I won't go to college. So the relationship is slightly strained, which is really sad. And I know Dakota isn't happy about me being on the defense side currently. But they're still both family. I'm still my dad's baby girl. And if he really wanted to disown me, I would not be in the will. And as of right now, I am still in the will. So I think there's time for that to be it's just really hard for me. I'm sorry. It would for that relationship, both with Dakota and my dad, to be rebuilt again.
Sorry, Ms. Weirs. Would you say because you're still in the will, you could potentially get money if Dakota wins this lawsuit?
I guess you could say that. I mean, my dad is paying for Dakota's medical bills. So then overall, I would then potentially get money after my dad dies, but hopefully that's like years and years and years away, because I deeply love my dad and my brother.
Let's discuss your article. What does Drufo do?
Drufo is a bonding agent used in fertilizers.
Why is Drufo a good product?
Well, Drufo not only bonds to the plants, but also active ingredients, nitrogen, potassium, and phosphate, and it helps prevent those ingredients from getting washed away as quickly.
Why is this important?
Well, Lush's fertilizer and then other fertilizers, while Lush can be applied once to twice a year, and other fertilizers have to be applied 5 to 6 times a year to get the same results.
How does that make Lush a better product?
Well, also with this, there are certain pesticides that other fertilizers use that because of Drufo, Lush can exclude them. Those pesticides would be glyphosate and arsenic, to be specific.
Anything else you found in your research?
Well, because Drufo is such a good product, Lush does not need to use any of those pesticides that I just mentioned because it works better without them.
What is the problem with those pesticides?
Well, however, there have been no known causal links between Drufo and cancer. There have been causal links found between those pesticides and cancer. The International Agency for Research on Cancer categorizes arsenic as a carcinogen for humans and glyphosate as a potential carcinogen.
Have you reached a professional opinion on Drufo?
Yes, I have.
And what is that professional opinion?
That Drufo is a revolutionary product and a game changer in agriculture, used as a safe alternative to currently used fertilizers and pesticides. The use of Drufo in nitrogen products can reduce the amount of nitrogen released into the air and also used significantly, and will reduce that amount in farming operations significantly.
Finally, is Drufo carcinogenic?
There has been no study that has presented that there is a causal link between Drufo and cancer with any level of certainty.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Mr. Jensen, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Weirs, you're an investigative journalist, yes?
Yes, I am.
You write for The Rationalist?
Yes, Rationalist magazine.
A magazine made to promote scientific skepticism.
Yes, or rhetoric and jargon is another way to say that too.
And do you have a college degree?
No, I do not. But again, you do not need a degree to research, and financially the amount of money that it takes to go to college versus what I'm doing right now, where I'm getting experience in the field. I would rather just not go to college right now.
And you've written about many topics.
Yes, I have.
Ms. Weirs, in your journalism, you've written about Drufo.
Yes, I have.
And you don't believe that Lush fertilizer is dangerous.
I have looked at various studies, and statistically, there has been no correlation.
And you haven't researched Drufo yourself.
Well, do you mean, what do you mean research specifically? Because there's different types of research that you can do.
Have you tested it?
No, I have not. Again, I'm not a scientist.
Thank you.
As
I'm sorry, my
stated
question
earlier.
was vague.
No, you're fine.
Now you said Lush's active ingredient is nitrogen.
It's one of the active ingredients, but also with Drufo, it limits the amount of nitrogen, which is actually really great for the environment, but then also for humans, because that's one of the reasons that the EU has actually banned Drufo in their products, is because of the nitrogen.
Sorry.
No, you're okay.
Yes, because nitrogen is known to contribute to cancer.
Yes. So then by limiting it, then there is not as much of a risk.
Thank you. And pesticide is poison, yes?
Yes, by definition, it is a poison for insects.
And Drufo is a pesticide?
Yes, but again, it's pesticides are poison by definition for insects and insects alone.
So pesticides never affect humans?
Not usually. Pesticides and herbicides are used to kill insects, and then herbicides, weeds.
So you're saying humans cannot be adversely affected by pesticides?
Not as much as, well, that's what pesticides are made to do. There can obviously, if you swallow it, it can be dangerous, but I don't think anybody would do that.
Thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Robertson, any redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense have any more witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Dr. Devin Williams to the screen.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Pavetti. Dr. Williams, you understand you are under oath that you gave at the beginning of the day?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison, you're ready? Excellent. Ms. Pavetti, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name, spelling the last for the record?
Dr. Devin Williams, Williams.
What is your current job?
Currently, I lead the toxicology research and development labs at Lush Fertilizer.
To be clear, what does that mean for the purposes of the jury?
It means I am a research toxicologist. I am by training.
How long have you worked at Lush?
Currently, I have worked at my current position for about 7 years, but I've been at the company for all 10 years.
Let's talk about your educational background. What did you get your bachelor's degree in?
I got my bachelor's degree in toxicology from Colorado State University. I'm very sorry. On my CV, I believe it says I got that from the University of Utah, and that's a mistake. Yeah, it's a typo.
Following obtaining your bachelor's degree, did you further your education?
Yes, I got my master's degree with forensic toxicology specialty from Colorado State University.
Anything else?
Yes, I later got my PhD in toxicology and pharmacology from Colorado State University. And after that, I did a post-PhD program at the University of Utah in pharmacotoxicology.
Do you have any certifications?
Oh, I have many. I've been certified in 4 states: Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming.
What certifications did you receive in Colorado?
From Colorado, I've been certified from Colorado Department of Public Health and Environmental Laboratories in forensics toxicology.
What certifications did you receive from New Mexico?
From New Mexico, I received certification from the State of New Mexico Board of Medical Examiners and Bioanalytical Toxicology Laboratories Director.
What certifications did you receive in Wyoming?
Well, from Wyoming, I received certification from the State of Wyoming Agency of Healthcare Administration in toxicology.
What certifications from Utah?
From Utah, I have certification from Utah Department of Public Health and Mental Hygiene in toxicology and drugs of abuse.
Do you have any other jobs beyond working at Lush?
I do. Currently, I'm assistant professor at the University of New Mexico, where I teach forensic toxicology.
What else do you teach there?
I teach 4 courses overall: forensic toxicology 1, forensic toxicology 2, forensic toxicology, principles of forensic toxicology, and toxicology, environmental and occupational chemicals.
Have you taught anywhere else?
I have. I've been a visiting professor at Colorado State University since 2003. I've also taught at the University of Colorado, Denver, and Chutes Medical Campus, where I've been professor of toxicology and pathophysiology.
Beyond teaching and working at Lush, have you had any other jobs?
I have. I used to work as a toxicologist from Lemaire Chief County Medical Examiner's Office.
What did that job do?
Well, in that job, it was my job to review human samples taken from humans during an autopsy, where I review if chemicals or drugs had any part to play in their deaths. I also would see where certain chemicals originated from.
Have you published any scholarly articles?
Yes, currently I've published 6.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I'm now sharing my screen of what has been Exhibit 9.
Okay.
Dr. Williams, have you seen this exhibit before?
I have. It's my CV or resume.
Where have you seen this?
Well, I wrote it.
Is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Well, other than that one tiny mistake that was aforementioned, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to enter Exhibit 9 for its accuracy has been shown and authenticity stipulated to.
Any objection, Ms. Harrison?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 9 will be admitted.
Your Honor, pursuant to Colorado Rule of Evidence 702, the defense moves to enter Dr. Williams as an expert in the field of toxicology and on Drufo.
Ms. Harrison, any objections?
I apologize. You cut out for most of that
Ms.
expert
Pavetti,
classification. Can you repeat it, please?
yes, Ms. Pavetti,
An expert, my apologies, Your Honor.
go ahead.
An expert in forensic toxicology and on Drufo.
No objections.
Then the witness will be recognized by the court as an expert in toxicology and Drufo. You may seek expert testimony from this witness, Ms. Pavetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, what is Drufo?
Well, Drufo is an ingredient used as a bonding agent in less fertilizer.
Who's the owner of the patent to Drufo?
Well, Lush Fertilizer both invented and owns patent for Drufo.
Dr. Williams, is the fertilizer produced by Lush the same type of fertilizer that was used in the mid to late 1900s?
Oh Lord, no. Without getting too much into detail, the fertilizer that was used in the mid to late 1900s is completely different. It caused so many problems such as chemical runoff and eutrophication.
What makes Drufo different?
Well, Drufo's Lush fertilizer is different because it uses Drufo. Drufo is important because it adheres chemicals to each other and to the plants where the fertilizer has been sprayed.
Why is this important?
Well, that is important because it's overall better for the environment. It helps to prevent processes known as eutrophication and chemical runoff from occurring, which is better for plants, better for animals, better for people, and just better for the environment in general. All good, no bad.
Has Drufo been banned?
Well, it has been banned by the EU and several other countries, but that is only because EU has this really silly nitrate directive that Drufo did not pass, but it was because the nitrate directive was poorly tested, and it's not because it's cancerous at all.
Has it been banned by the US?
Of course not. The US has its own system of testing chemicals, blindly follow what EU does.
What is your understanding about the correlation between non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and Drufo?
It is my understanding that there is none. I've reviewed the data. There is no correlation. It's the likelihood of developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is statistically indifferent between those who have and have not been exposed to Drufo.
Have you heard of a study conducted by Dr. Casey Rogers?
I have.
Do you have any criticisms about this study?
Well, I'd like to begin and say that I have the utmost respect for Dr. Rogers. Us scientists have a hard job, and I'm not here to attack anybody, but I do have a few critiques about her study.
What are those critiques?
Well, first, she compared average suburban gardeners to farm laborers in her study, and those two groups of people are so different. That's like comparing apples to oranges and saying they're both fruit. What's the difference?
What else is wrong with the study?
Well, it hasn't been.
Objection. Outside of the scope of the witness's expertise, she has been entered as an expert in Drufo and forensic toxicology, not research methods or data and statistics.
Response?
Your Honor, this witness is a scientist, and the scientific method is well known by anyone who's ever gone to high school, let alone a PhD program.
Close call, but I'll overrule the objection. Just be wary of your time, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. What other criticisms do you have with this study?
The study has not been peer reviewed. In science, you need to have your stuff being peer reviewed because a peer review shows that other scientists have reviewed the data and agree with the results and the way you conducted the study.
Are your
Also, the
other
study has
criticisms?
been-
My
I'm
apologies,
sorry.
continue.
Also, the study has not been replicated. Science, you need to replicate your studies because flukes happen, and a replication shows that it has happened more than once, which means the data is more valid.
The scientific method is meant to prove facts. Is that right?
Yes, it is meant to take assumptions.
Objection, leading question.
Sustained.
Your Honor, I will rephrase. What does the scientific method prove?
Facts.
What did Dr. Casey's Rogers study prove?
Nothing. Study was inconclusive in itself. The way she conducted it wasn't very well conducted, and I don't think the results are valid.
Would you compare that to being assumptions?
Yes, she used a lot of assumptions in her study.
So to be clear, what actual causation is there between Drupo and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
There is none. Absolutely none. I reviewed data. Statistically, there's none.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Fetti. Ms. Harrison, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor, just a moment. May I proceed?
You may.
You've worked for Lush for a long time.
Yes, I've been with the company in overall 10 years, but I've been head of the R&D labs in toxicology for about 7 years.
So as you mentioned, you're a department head there.
Yes, I lead toxicology department research and development labs.
If Lush does well, you do well. Would that be fair to say?
Are you saying that if Lush is financially well, I get paid?
Yes, as an employee of Lush.
I get paid no matter what. It is my job. I get paid for my job.
You were brought onto the Drufo development team about halfway through its testing.
I joined when about 50% of the staff were turning over to other ventures outside of the company.
And as a result of that employee turnover, testing timelines were impacted.
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out. I didn't hear the last part. Can you repeat the question?
That. Of course. As a result of that employee turnover, testing timelines were impacted.
I guess you could say a little bit.
And as you mentioned earlier, Drufo is banned in quite a few countries.
Okay, let me explain about that. Drufo is only banned in the EU and other countries because of their directive, not because of cancer risk. It is banned because their 92 directive is kind of stupid the way they have it set up. They have it in laboratory settings, which are not even, they don't even compare to environmental settings. The way they have it, so Drufo did fail in the laboratory settings, but if you do it in actual settings that occur in the environment, it does pass the nitrate directive. The only reasons other countries such as Haiti, Liberia, have banned Drufo as well is because they're just blindly following what the EU does. Basically, it has nothing to do with health. It's just bureaucracy, plain and simple.
But that would be a yes. It is banned in quite a few countries, specifically the entire European Union.
Yes, it has banned in the European Union.
And Lush didn't fight that decision.
Well, let me explain. Lush was first starting to take root then. We were a small company and we didn't want to go through all the bureaucratic roadblocks caused by the European Union's entire system. So as a small country, we thought it would be more profitable to make a line of fertilizer that does not use Drufo and sell it there in the European Union. And then when we had more resources and could do it actually, conduct a proper retesting of Drufo, that we would.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, you thought it would be, or rather the company thought it would be too costly to fight that decision, and that's why they did not.
Well, we were a really small company then. We didn't have the resources to manage that at the time.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But Lush is now making plans to appeal for reconsideration, correct?
Yes, because we now are a bigger company, we have the resources to do that, and we can actually properly fight the roadblocks and bureaucratic whatever going on in the EU with their testing because yeah, it's really bad.
And Mr. Weir's winning this lawsuit would disrupt those plans.
If Mr. Weir's
Your Honor, speculation.
Response?
As an employee of this company, I feel as though Dr. Williams would be able to understand, especially given how much she clearly knows about the bureaucratic roadblocks and the way the EU and its testing works. It seems perfectly reasonable for her to know whether her company would have to continue testing as she is the head of the research and development labs if this lawsuit were to be won.
I'll allow you to ask the question. If she doesn't know, then she doesn't know.
Okay. Mr. Weir's winning this lawsuit would disrupt those plans.
Okay, so if Mr. Weir's did indeed win the lawsuit, I mean, again, it's kind of speculation at this point. I mean, I suppose it would disrupt the plans, being we have the more bureaucratic roadblocks to go through, and then which would be harder for us, more costly for us. You know, it would just be a lot of, you know, be harder for us to appeal this decision. So based on speculation.
And as you mentioned in that answer, this would mean more work for you and your colleagues.
It would mean, yeah, we would have to, because then it would be a lot more work because we conduct more studies on it, which we've already conducted a lot of studies on it. And I can show you that Drufo is safe based on studies that are actually valid. So it would be a lot more work, studies, and then it costs more money, and then we have to do a bunch of stuff, EU, yeah.
Thank you. And Lush Fertilizers products can be manufactured without Drufo.
Yes, we've done that in the EU.
But you still continue to add this chemical to your products outside of the EU.
That's because Drufo makes the product a lot safer for those than manufacturing in the EU. It also helps the environment more, and it's just overall better to have a fertilizer with Drufo in it than without.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Your Honor, no further questions.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. I believe, Ms. Fetty, you have a little bit less than a minute to do a recross if you wish, or redirect.
Could I inquire to my timekeeper as to how much time I do have left?
Why don't we do that?
You have a minute and 10 seconds.
Mr. Vetti, do you wish to
Yes,
do
Your Honor, I will
redirect?
redirect.
All right.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Williams, do you have any sort of financial bias in today's case?
I mean, I do work for the company, but as I've proven, I can get basically a job anywhere I wanted to. I've worked a lot of places and I have options.
What studies have proven at Lush that prove that Drufo is safe?
Well, we've conducted many in-house studies about it. And again, statistically, there's no correlation between Drufo exposure and cancer risk.
Is that a fact?
Yes, it is a fact.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vetti. Ms. Harrison. All right. Does the defense have any more witnesses?
No, Your Honor. At this time, the defense rests.
All right. Are the parties ready for their closing statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Jensen, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Lush Fertilizer ruined Dakota Weir's life because Lush was negligent. Look at jury instruction 2. It states that, since we have proven that Lush contains Drufo, since we have proven that Lush Fertilizer was negligent and failed to protect their users, since we have proven that Dakota Weir's is a person who should reasonably have been expected to use Lush Fertilizer, and since we have proven that Dakota Weir's cancer was most certainly caused by Lush Fertilizer, your verdict must be, jury members, for Dakota Weir's. Number 1, we have proven Lush Fertilizer contains Drufo. Not only have you heard the sworn testimony of many, including the CEO of Lush itself, but we have shown you physical evidence. Number 2, We have proven that the defendant was neglectful and did not take the proper care they should have to protect their users. There was no warning on the packaging of Lush fertilizer about Drufo, no warning that Lush fertilizer contained a bonding agent outlawed in other countries for its risk to users, because Lush fertilizer decided that the European Union's decision was, as Dr. Devin Williams so heatedly told us, stupid. Dakota Weirs is not the only one who has become sick from Lush fertilizer. No, Dr. Casey Rogers informed us that when studied, those exposed to Drufo are 10 times more likely to develop cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, than those who are not. This is no one-time accident. These are the facts. Many have been adversely affected by Lush fertilizer's negligence. Lush fertilizer's own studies found that not only may Drufo contain a known carcinogen, but one linked specifically to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and yet they decided it wasn't a problem. Lush knew there was a reasonable chance that their product caused cancer, and yet they did not take reasonable care to prevent it from causing harm to their users and the public. They chose not to bake their fertilizer, which would have removed any risk that it was carcinogenic, did not do any more studies, did not even bother to issue a sufficient warning. Lush fertilizer did not want to take the time or spend the money to keep the public safe. Even the defendant's witnesses admit that Drufo is dangerous. Skylar Weirs told us that Drufo is pesticide, and what were her words? Pesticide is, by definition, poison. The main ingredient in Drufo is nitrogen, known to contribute to various types of cancer, and yet Lush fertilizer decided they didn't even need to warn their customers. Number 3, we have proven that Dakota Weirs is a person who should reasonably be expected to use Lush fertilizer, working every day at a landscaping job. Number 4, finally, we have proven that Dakota Weirs' damages were most certainly caused by Lush fertilizer. There were other workers at Dakota Weirs' landscaping job, and yet Dakota Weirs, using Lush fertilizer, developed cancer. Other than work, Dakota Weirs and his twin lived in the same environment, and yet Dakota Weirs, using Lush fertilizer, developed cancer. If there had been a simple warning issued by Lush fertilizer, Dakota Weirs could have avoided all of this, and yet Dakota Weirs, using Lush fertilizer, developed cancer. Lush fertilizer knew that their product posed a risk to users, and yet, because of their negligence, Mr. Weirs developed cancer. Lush claims that there was only a small, tiny risk. They never said that there was no carcinogen, and they could not say there was no risk. All they could tell us was that they had no conclusive studies that it was dangerous. But that's not exactly true, is it? They didn't like the results from their first study, so they started over with new text, reassigning anybody who had been involved in the first one. When presented with a simple, low-cost way to eliminate any risk, to bake their fertilizer, Lush decided it was too costly to bother. Weirs developed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that will no longer allow him to live his life because of Lush fertilizer's negligence. He can no longer be the active student he was in school, can no longer volunteer at the homeless shelter, can no longer even do something so simple as playing piano anymore. Because of Lush fertilizer's negligence, instead of going to Juilliard, Dakota Weirs suffers at home, constantly in pain, no longer able to even sit without bruising and experiencing fatigue. Lush fertilizer took everything from Dakota. They took his future career, his passion, his quality of life. Because of Lush fertilizer, Dakota Weirs' life has been ruined. Living as it was has become impossible. Playing even the shortest concerto has become impossible. Life as it was, impossible. Lush was negligent, and because of that, jury members, your verdict must be for Dakota Weirs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jensen. Is the defense ready for their closing?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Pavetti, whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, opposing counsel and members of the jury, we are here today due to negligence, and this negligence has not come from the defense. The product Lush fertilizer is safe, and today we have shown this to you numerous times. Lush products was safe and tested as doctors testified to you. There was no legal need to put a warning label on the product, as Blake Doncourt has told you, but he still went the extra mile to put a user safety recommendation label that Dakota Weirs admitted to not even have read. This product is safe and was entirely within regulation. Skylar Weir attests to this, going further to explain how the product is good for the environment and the planet as a whole. The plaintiff asks you to rule this case based upon assumptions. They ask you to believe the words of an ex-company worker with an axe to grind who has not worked for 15 years at Lush Fertilizer. The amount of testing, the amount of products that could have been redistributed or remade that they would have no knowledge of in those 15 years, having not worked at Lush Incorporated. Dakota claims that Lush Fertilizer is responsible, but they have no testimony today from their general practitioner that can confirm this. They only have the testimony of Dr. Casey Rogers, who can only assume that the plaintiff's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is caused by a Lush Fertilizer product. The plaintiff is asking you to speculate that their condition was caused by a Lush Fertilizer product, but they cannot confirm this information. So what's just one more assumption? The plaintiff has the burden of proof in today's case. They have to prove to you with a preponderance of evidence that 1, Lush Fertilizer manufactured a fertilizer product containing a chemical compound known as Drufo. 2, Lush Fertilizer was negligent by failing to exercise reasonable care to prevent the product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm to persons who might have reasonably been expected to use the product in the manner Lush Fertilizer might have reasonably expected. 3, the plaintiff was one of those persons Lush Fertilizer should have reasonably expected to use this product. And 4, the plaintiff had damages that were caused by Lush Fertilizer's negligence while the product was being used in a manner Lush Fertilizer should have reasonably expected. And if the plaintiff cannot prove all 4 of these statements, your verdict must be with the defense. The plaintiff cannot prove that they were among the people that Lush Fertilizer reasonably expected to use the product. As you've seen earlier, the product label on a Lush Fertilizer package contains the words, "keep out of reach of children." And Dakota Weirs has testified today that they were just a child when they were using Lush Fertilizer's product. And legally, they were a child throughout their entire use of working with this product. This can be seen in the proper use section that there was multiple PPE protections that they could have taken. Wearing long pants, gloves, masks, long sleeves. They had numerous warnings about what to wear, including from their boss, who they blatantly disregarded, all because it was hot outside or because they were following what the adults did. Lush Fertilizer also properly exercised reasonable care to prevent their product from creating an unreasonable risk of harm. Besides the proper use label that's included on the product, defense has also tested their product to determine its safety. The defense tries to make you, the plaintiff tries to make you believe that Lush Fertilizer is a greedy company. A greedy company would not donate 10% of their annual profits to charity. A greedy company would not do the amount of testing that they have done in order to try and make sure every product that they produce is safe. Lush is an environmentally safe product. And as to the plaintiff's own defense expert witness, Dr. Casey Rogers admits that it is in her own professional opinion that Dakota Weirs should have worn personal protective equipment. Dakota Weirs is negligent in today's case. Your Honor, the defense feels awful about the plaintiff's condition, but the defense at the end of the day is not the one responsible here. At the end of the day, we may never know what caused cancer. We do know that it was not a Lush Fertilizer and product. We ask you to go with the facts in this case, not the assumptions that the plaintiff has only brought to you today. Assumptions and an expert witness from an ex-company worker and from a misguided teenager. We ask you to go with the facts from 2 expert witnesses and the CEO of an environmentally safe company. Thank you.
All right, thank you, counsel, and thank you all. We can all come on screen. I know the scoring panelists are getting ready, getting their scores put together. As the scoring panelists, stay off screen and come on screen when you have finished entering your scores. That way we know.
Thank you all. Nice job, everybody. Judge, if you have comments while the scoring panelists are submitting theirs, you're welcome to do those.
Sure, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, that way it doesn't take so long. I think we got through this fairly quickly, though.
Yeah, you guys did good.
Yeah, I've been involved in other rounds that took quite a while, and this one it wasn't too bad. The objections were well stated. The responses were, very well responded to. Obviously, with respect to the objections, I think that there were some good hearsay objection. Ms. Hollaback, at the very beginning, you made a good hearsay objection, and you know what? Make the other side tell you why it's not hearsay. I think it wasn't hearsay, but it could have been, depending on what the reason was for bringing in that testimony. So you can definitely make those objections. I think you all had really good understanding of the rules on the objections, and so that was nice to see. Classic one is it's not being admitted for the proof of the matter asserted. That is exactly the point of that's a classic hearsay objection, and it was very well made here. So yeah, you guys had really good. I was happy with the objections. Let's see. So generally speaking, obviously, I mean, you guys hear this every time that you all did very well. You wouldn't be here right now if you weren't good at this. So I see that came across nicely. I saw Ms. Jensen during the opening. For the plaintiff, you were strong, you were passionate. Both Mrs. Jensen's in the opening and closing were both very strong and passionate. And I like that, especially coming from a plaintiff's attorney. That's what you want to see representing your client, your individual against the big corporation. You want to see that passion, and that was very good on both ends there. On the defense openings and closings, you had the theme, facts, not assumptions, and you guys both put those in there and you tied them together. So those were really good. It's always nice to see a theme. Let's see. I don't want to do too much. The minor versus child argument, it was interesting. I think the point was made, so maybe you don't have to hammer it in quite as hard. You made the point. It was a good point that I hadn't seen before, and I did earlier rounds of this at the district level, and so that's something that was new to me that I hadn't seen. I thought the plaintiff directs were all very good, making the witnesses the star, good transitions. I was very happy with all of you guys on that. You weren't distracted by the objections. You handled them nicely. One thing, this is a minor issue for Casey Rogers, when you introduce yourself, I have never heard a doctor not introduce themselves as doctor, even if it's a PhD. Doctors love reminding you that they're doctors. So, as a doctor, that's something that you might want to consider. So during the cross-examination of Blake Doncourt, who was that Southern charm or smarm, depending on which way you're looking at it. You could take it either way. But he used the phrase, "You could say that," a couple times. And I was just really waiting, Ms. Jensen, for you to say, "But would you say that?" You could say that. You're right. But would you? Right? It's a way of shutting that down. But you did, when he said small, tiny risk, you did use that against him, and that was nice. So yeah, that was that was one thing that I caught there. Obviously the objection to Weirs was a good objection, but they write these questions the way they write these questions. Ms. Harrison, I liked your, after a very long answer that that was being given a few times, you just said, "Is that a yes?" It's like, you know what? Yeah, you run into that, especially with experts. They love talking, but you then said, "Is that a yes?" So that was that's the way you handle them. On the other hand, the witness loves to say, "Oh, so okay, interesting question. Let me explain that." You know what? It's a good tactic by the witness, and it's really hard to combat. So yeah, let's see. Ms. Pavetti, I was very much looking forward to your cross. I could see the confidence that you had going into it, and I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I was really looking forward to that, and I wasn't disappointed. I can go on for a while, but let's hear from the people who are actually scoring you what they thought. Let's start with Ms. McGregor. Oh, by the way, my name is Greg Rich. I'm a civil practitioner in Denver. We do civil construction, personal injury, primarily on the defense side. And so I've been doing these competitions, judging, and being a scoring panelist for a few years now, and you know, did it in law school as well. I was a competitor in law school, so I'm used to seeing these types of problems, and just really happy to see how well you all did. All right, Megan, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to the group and share your thoughts? I can't hear you, Megan.
How about if I do it through the computer? Can you hear me? Let's just do that.
There, that's better.
Plugs are my enemy. All right, so I'm Megan McGregor. I am an associate at Holland and Hart in Denver, and I'm a transactional attorney, but I have a BFA in theater, if you can believe it. So I'm here for the theatrics. But at any rate, I would like to echo everything that Greg said. You guys, you're incredible. He's right. If you weren't, you wouldn't be here. And start to finish, the through line with the openings and closes were really great. I love a list. I love a roadmap. Juries love a list. They love a roadmap. You got to tell them where you're going, and you guys did that. And then you went there, thoroughly knocked out those points, and that is more helpful than I can ever express. So that was great. I loved, and this is something I noticed in another round, but I love the back and forth, like during the qualifying of the expert witnesses, because there are witnesses on each side that like lacked certain things. And the fact that you guys were so good at just like discarding what you said for the other one and just really digging in for your own witness was great, without acknowledging that you were kind of doing a different thing on the other side. Witnesses, you all did such a great job. There were a lot of times where I was like, I love that you didn't give them more information than the cross needed. You really stuck to what was in your statement, what was in the facts. You didn't give them more than they needed to, attack you with. And that was really savvy and really good. And I really liked that. Just the crosses were really good. The objections too. A lot of the objections when you were asking to respond to them, super thorough, great knowledge of the rules. I wish that you guys could have taught my evidence class, because you would have probably done a better job than my professor. It was really thorough, really calculated, really, fact-based, evidence-based, just really great responses. So yeah, I took like 4 pages of notes. I should really condense these a little bit, but it was really evident that you all knew the facts too. I think it was Danielle, you said at one point in time, well, that wasn't in your statement. And just the calling out, really knowing those facts and really absorbing those is so important, and you all showed that you really did that. So anyway, I think that's probably enough from me. So
Thank you, Megan. Diana, can you please introduce yourself and share some thoughts with the students?
Of course. Hi, everybody. So I am Dinah Ray. I practiced family law and bankruptcy for the last 10 years in Garfield, Pitkin, pretty much the 9th Judicial District. I also was a mock trial coach for years. And now that I have little ones, I judge and score. So I'm very familiar with mock trial and how much hard work you guys have put in. And just like all the other judges have said, you're here. So it means that you are good at what you do. And you guys proved it today for sure. I do have a few just general comments. One is slow down, especially on Zoom. I talk fast. I get yelled at by judges all the time. I'm sorry, see, that's my kid right there.
This is why you don't coach.
This
is why you don't coach
anymore. This is why I don't coach anymore. But anyways, so slow down, especially on virtual, but even in person, you want to, just like Megan was saying with your roadmap, you want to make it purposeful. So it's 1, pause, then say it. 2, pause, right? And so you want to make those pauses, hand gestures, you want to make them very purposeful. Some, you tend to talk really fast because I want to get all the information out because I'm timed, and I get that because I'm the same way. But really that's a really, that makes, that scores you from like a 9 to a 10, having that purposeful talk. I will say I loved listening to the voir dires. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. Crosses and voir dires are my favorite. And you guys did so good with the voir dires. Like the back and forth on qualifying the expert. So I agree with Megan. Like I absolutely loved listening to that. It was like listening to real court, because that's where you a lot of times in court win is, getting the experts qualified or not qualified or what they can testify to. And the other thing I would say to work on is always have a redirect. You want the last say, like always have one question in your back pocket, whatever it is. If the cross went pretty well and your witness got to say everything, just have one question, just have one. And because you want the last say, you want the last point, and maybe it's your theme, maybe it's a follow-up, but really listen to that cross. Maybe your witness didn't get in some things. Another thing is, I think it was Sophie, you had a witness that was running, right? Dr. Williams, Sierra, you were running as a witness, right? And in virtual, it's so much harder. And I know because I do virtual evidentiary hearings and it's so much harder. But even if you put your hand up, excuse me, Dr. Williams, that wasn't my question. I didn't ask you to explain. It was a yes or no. Okay. So please, when I ask my questions, the answer is yes or no. Okay. So it just, and that is just, I am nitpicking at this point because you guys did so good, right? You did so good. But I also, Sierra, Sierra? Hopefully I'm saying that right. But I loved your character. You did so well because it's just like Greg said, like it was just any other expert witness. They just love to talk. Well, yeah, let me talk about this. I want to tell you about it because I know all about it, right? So, but overall, you guys did great. You guys had great eye contact in your closing too, which is very hard in virtual, especially when you can't see me. But you guys did really good. So congratulations. It was a very good round.
All right. Thank you, Dana. Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So I'm actually an insurance defense counsel with Travelers Insurance. So we deal with these kinds of cases. So it's very interesting to hear your mock trial and all the aspects of it. I reiterate what everybody else said in terms of the judge and the scores. Very, very well done. And what I really liked, and this is true in trial as a defense lawyer, when the passion of the plaintiff's lawyer is coming across so adamantly, and as a counsel, I just want to sit under the table and hope it ends soon. So well done. And I'm thinking, please, defense lawyer, get up and let me come back up, sit at the table and be proud to be on the defense side. And that was done. It was so well done that the contrast and the competition in the opening and closing just was so excellent. And that was true, I think, with direct and cross-examinations through the entire proceeding as well. I want to reiterate the voir dire process. I was really impressed by that. I did not expect, this is my first time watching a mock trial, having tried many, many cases myself. And I'll tell you, I wasn't expecting that. And it was very well done, very impressive. Professionalism. You all came across so professionally. I was so impressed by that. Your demeanor, your respect for the judge with each other, especially with each other. If you cut each other off, you recognize that, and that was good. I think that, I don't know if in your mock trial you're allowed to do this, But if you can highlight exhibits like in yellow, like with the exhibit 1 with the language you want to emphasize, sometimes if you're allowed in your mock trial to emphasize exhibits, highlight those things, bring it to the juror's attention. There is one thing I think that Diana was just saying with respect to Ms. Harrison's letting the expert sort of go on and on and on, and how you deal with that. I actually liked how you handled it. And the reason for that is Mr. Doncourt was really taking a lot of privilege, but how was he coming across? And you have to use your own sense of how he's coming across. And I loved how you said, was that a yes? And the way you were kind of focused on him, just looking at him like, is that a yes? Because I think it reiterates sort of the content of that, but everybody, very well done.
Excellent. All right. Do we have confirmation that the
Yes,
scores have been received?
Yes, all your score sheets are in and you guys are all dismissed. Or
all right.
The judge will dismiss you, sorry. You're welcome to dismiss them.
The court clerks love doing the stuff that they think that they should be doing instead of the judge. So with that, you are all dismissed with our thanks, and thank you to the scoring panelists and anybody out there watching. You be proud of the work you've done with your students or your kids. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.